The volcanic scent of sulfur hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the simmering power beneath Didier's feet. The twin Piton Mountains, Gros Piton and Petit Piton, pierced the sky like giant slumbering beasts, their slopes a tapestry of emerald green against the sapphire blue Caribbean Sea. But the idyllic beauty of Soufriere did little to soothe the turmoil within Didier. Desperation gnawed at his soul, a relentless beast fueled by a bitter cocktail of jealousy and despair. His life, once filled with the promise of prosperity, had crumbled like volcanic ash. His younger brother, Laurent, had stolen everything: their father's thriving cocoa plantation, the affections of their childhood sweetheart, Helene, and the respect of the entire town. Now, Didier was reduced to tending a meager plot of land on the outskirts of Soufriere, barely scraping by. One humid evening, as the pitons cast long shadows across the land, Didier stumbled upon a faded, leather-bound book tucked away in the dusty attic of his ramshackle home. Its pages crackled with age, filled with faded script and illustrations of otherworldly creatures. One particular passage caught his eye: a detailed description of a Bolom, a miniature humanoid creature conjured for malicious purposes. The ritual was simple, yet chilling. Place a raw egg under one's pillow for 3 nights, and on the third dawn, a Bolom would hatch, ready to serve its master's dark desires. A desperate hope flickered in Didier's heart. Could this Bolom be the answer to his problems? Could it wreak havoc on Laurent, steal back his rightful inheritance, and perhaps even win back Helene? The thought ignited a fire in his gut, the embers of righteousness stoked by vengeful desire. He gathered the necessary ingredients: a perfectly round egg, a sprig of rosemary for purification, and a vial of his own blood to bind the creature to his will. Following the instructions meticulously, he spent 3 nights tossing and turning, the raw egg an unsettling weight beneath his pillow. The anticipation gnawed at him, morphing into a nervous excitement as the third dawn approached. As the first rays of sunshine filtered through his window, Didier ripped the egg from under his pillow. Inside, nestled among the cracked shell, lay a tiny, wizened creature with eyes like smoldering embers. It opened its mouth to speak, but Didier, fueled by a surge of adrenaline, slammed his hand over its tiny form and blurted out, "Moi c'est maître," meaning, "I am your owner." The Bolom squirmed and snarled, its voice a raspy whisper that sent shivers down Didier's spine. But the deed was done. Didier held a creature captive, his control a precarious tether. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. The Bolom, small enough to fit in Didier's pocket, followed his every command. It sabotaged Laurent's crops, sowed discord amongst his workers, and even delivered an anonymous note to Helene, detailing Laurent's infidelity. A twisted sense of satisfaction bloomed within Didier as he witnessed Laurent's world crumble. Yet a nagging guilt gnawed at him. Helene, despite receiving the note, remained distant, her eyes filled with sadness. The Bolom, constantly demanding raw meat, became a source of growing unease. Its presence hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the darkness Didier had embraced. One moonlit night, Didier sat on his porch, the stench of sulfur and the chirping of crickets the only sounds. He stared at the sleeping Bolom in his hand, the creature's chest rising and falling with a life of its own. A sudden, unsettling thought struck him. What if the Bolom was growing stronger, feeding on his anger and resentment? Days turned into weeks, and Didier's unease grew into full-blown fear. The Bolom seemed to be changing, its eyes glowing brighter with each passing night. One morning, he awoke to find the creature gone, a raw, bloody patch on his arm where it had fed. Panic surged through him as he realized the Bolom had disobeyed for the first time. A frantic search yielded nothing. Then, amidst the chirping of crickets, he heard it, a weak, pitiful cry, echoing from the dense forest that bordered his land. It sounded like a child, lost and scared. Didier knew it was the Bolom, luring him in. He hesitated, fear warring with a morbid curiosity. With a deep breath, he followed the sound, pushing through the thick undergrowth. As he emerged into a clearing, the moonlight revealed a horrifying sight. The Bolom, no longer the miniature creature he had known, stood before him, towering at least 5 feet tall, eyes burning red and fangs dripping with blood. Days of feeding on stolen livestock had transformed it into a monstrous beast. Didier froze, the weight of his actions crushing him. The Bolom lunged, a guttural roar erupting from its throat. Didier threw himself back, scrambling to escape the gnashing teeth. He stumbled and fell, the Bolom looming over him like a grotesque nightmare. But just as the creature prepared to deliver the final blow, a piercing scream echoed through the clearing. Helene! Didier saw her, bathed in moonlight, running towards him, her eyes wide with terror. The Bolom hesitated, its gaze flickering between Didier and Helene. In that split second, Didier saw an opening. Using all his remaining strength, he lunged for the pouch hanging from his belt. The pouch containing the vial of his own blood used to bind the Bolom. With a desperate prayer, he smashed the vial against the creature's leg. A deafening screech filled the air as the Bolom writhed, black smoke erupting from the wound. It stumbled back, its form shrinking before dissolving into a cloud of ash. that dissipated in the night breeze. The silence after the Bolom's demise was deafening. Shame painted Didier's face as he looked at Helene, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and disappointment. He confessed everything, his voice raw with regret, pouring out the desperation that fueled his actions. Helene listened, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "Didier," she said, "what you did was unforgivable. You sought to destroy Laurent, and in the process, almost destroyed yourself." Her words stung, but they were the truth. I just wanted what was rightfully mine," Didier stammered. "What Laurent stole from me." Helene's gaze softened slightly. "True, but revenge only creates more darkness," she said. "Laurent's actions were wrong, but yours weren't any better." She looked towards the plantation house, a flicker of sadness in her eyes. "I loved both of you once, Didier, but the man I fell in love with wouldn't have stooped to such measures." Didier hung his head, the weight of his actions crushing him. He realized that in his quest for vengeance, he had pushed Helene further away, shattering the fragile trust they once shared. The next morning, with a heavy heart, Didier approached Laurent. He confessed everything, revealing the truth behind the Bolom and the misfortunes plaguing the plantation. Shame washed over Laurent's face as he apologized for his arrogance and greed. The Bolom's curse had taken its toll, leaving him financially strained and humbled. Didier offered to help Laurent rebuild, to work alongside him like in the old days. To his surprise, Laurent accepted. The brothers, once divided by envy, began the arduous task of healing past wounds. It would be a long journey filled with suspicion and distrust, but a seed of reconciliation had been planted. Helene, meanwhile, decided to remain at the plantation. She felt a responsibility towards Laurent to help him pick up the pieces of his shattered life. Perhaps a spark of their old connection could be rekindled, built upon the foundation of shared hardship and a chance to heal together. Life in Soufriere wasn't easy. Didier and Laurent toiled long hours, rebuilding the plantation both physically and metaphorically. The volcanic soil held a promise of a new beginning, but there was a permanent gulf between them. Didier learned a hard lesson, that true success was not found in seeking revenge, but in facing your flaws, building bridges, and cultivating forgiveness. He also learned that love, once fractured, might not always heal in the way he envisioned. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, Didier sat on his porch alone. The pitons stood sentinel, their peaks bathed in golden light. The scent of sulfur hung heavy in the air, a reminder of the volatile nature of human emotions. Didier closed his eyes, a silent promise echoing within him, a promise to become a better man, a man worthy of respect, even if it meant living with the consequences of his choices and the loss of a love that might have been.